Hi, and welcome back. Our guest today is Bragilyn Ates, a former home care aide. She will share with us her experiences, what it's like being a professional caregiver providing in-home care. Thank you for joining us today, Bragilyn.
Thank you, Jasmine. Very
So,
glad to be here.
tell us about your background.
Okay, so I graduated a bachelor's degree in mass communication in the College of Mount St. Vincent, which is in the Bronx. And I studied TV, I studied film, I studied radio, and I am actually now currently working here as a studio producer in BronxNet.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes, thank
Now,
you.
what I find interesting is that in 2015, you became a personal care attendant
Yes.
through an agency. What inspired you to provide in-home care for patients?
What inspired me to become a home care worker, which is actually a very random choice for a career at the time, because I'm very into video and film. So what really inspired me actually was not only do I have this technical side of me that is very into TV and film, but I also have this side of me that loves to take care of people and loves to help people. And I looked at my mother actually as an example growing up because she's a registered nurse. So she's been a registered nurse all like most of her life. So seeing her as a little girl, one time I came to her job and watched her take care of her patients, how she spoke to them. And not only that, I also, there was a time where my grandfather was sickly. And during that time, he was bedridden. He had COPD.
Wow.
He was on an oxygen tank. So me, my mother, my sisters, my grandmother, my father, all had to take turns kind of helping him and take care of him when he needed the most. So a lot of my inspiration comes from my family.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you grew up seeing care being given in your
Yes.
family. That is awesome. You know, a lot of millennials are deciding to go into healthcare, whether it's becoming nurses, doctors, personal home care aides, and those kinds of professions. As we mentioned earlier, becoming a home care aide, that's the most fastest growing profession in the United States. And so it's something that is much needed. I mean, it requires minimal training. You get flexible hours, quick placement with agencies and things like that. So it's a very popular profession among millennials. Before becoming a home care worker, what other kinds of jobs had you had?
So before I became a home care worker, I had a few odd jobs, only because I had to get money, like some way, somehow. I had to give in revenue to my family as soon as I graduated. And it wasn't easy it wasn't easy finding this job. It took me a while. So in the meantime, I was like, you know what, I'll just do a few odd jobs. So when I came out of college, I worked for a bakery in administration. And then after that, I actually worked in a clinic. I used to work, helping. I was the doctor's assistant.
Wow.
And I also became an assistant to an ophthalmologist as well. After that, I then took on the job of being a home care worker. And then that was my last job before I got this one.
Now, how does someone pick an agency to work with? How did you go about that?
So I think for me, I can only talk about my experience and my experience only. I actually found my home care job through the internet. I saw an ad on a website, and it was directly from the family themselves. And after my interview with them, I was able to, they told me that I had to register through an agency.
Okay.
So I was in direct contact of the family themselves, not so much the agency first. So I think, if anybody wants to do home care, there are a lot of agencies that you can look up online. That's what I did. I kind of just looked at an ad and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do during the time. So.
Wow. Because a lot of people go through agencies, just applying straight to the agency rather than the family themselves. and then there are home attendant schools and things like that, and the students wait for placements with the agencies. One of the biggest challenges that home care workers face is low wages. The typical home care worker, as far as New York State is concerned, the hourly rate is between $11 to $13 an hour. And luckily for them, in January, it'll go up to $15. What is it like living on those kinds of wages?
So at the time, I had just maybe like it was 3 years past since I've graduated. And being a person that was just looking for any kind of job, I settled for $15 an hour. And living on that kind of, a budget and salary was fine for me at the time. I didn't have too much to pay for. I didn't have a family. I was just a single girl, just just trying to make money to help, at home. That was it. So that kind of a salary was actually fine for me. Now, compared to someone who has been in the home care, who's been a home care worker, has a family, is a parent, it may not be enough. If they're taking care of someone also at home.
Right.
For me, I was good. I was satisfied, and I was able to save a lot of money. For me, at least.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There was a study that came out a few months ago, and it was on how much money do you have to make to afford just a 2-bedroom apartment? And across the nation, it averaged $26 an hour. And so I know that, you're a young person and everything like that, and you were a recent college grad, but I know several home care attendants that are like 70 and 60 years old. And unfortunately for them, they have to pay a lot of bills.
Right.
They have to pay full rent, buy food, entertain themselves, traveling and things like that. So I can imagine, making that kind of money would be a strain on the older worker.
Right. And I mean, not only the older worker, but also for people who, I worked with a lot of other young girls that were around my age, and they had their own dreams and ambitions. And a lot of them, it was just this, being a home care worker for them was like, it helps me for the time being to be able to, some of them are paying rent. Some of them are living in the city, in Brooklyn, in Queens, and they would often have their little side jobs, and so. But for me, I didn't have those kind of dreams and ambitions just yet. I was satisfied where I was. But yeah, so not only for I agree, the older home care workers who do have families, but also for those who have dreams and ambitions that require just a little bit more financial help. So. Yeah.
A lot of millennials are choosing other gigs, imagine being a dog walker. You make $15 to $20 for a 20-minute walk with a dog, you know, and it makes you question, does our society value our dogs more than our parents?
It's a funny thought too. And it's funny because I actually had this conversation with my boyfriend because he was a dog walker too. And I found out that he made $300 a week just walking the same 1 or 2 dogs every day. So, and just for a few hours. And it's not only is that, good for him, but it was also it's something that he loved. He loved dogs, and he walked in the best places of New York City. It was a fun job. And so, I could question society, but at the same time, it really depends. It really depends. For me, I worked with a lovely family, and for others, it may not be so lovely. So it really, it really depends on, I guess, the kind of family that you work for, and what they value, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a person's success in providing care, whether you're a family caregiver or a professional caregiver, really depends on your relationship, between the patient and the person providing the care. It's a relationship that requires trust, sometimes forgiveness, understanding, flexibility, and those kinds of things. So, you're very lucky that you found a family that you could consistently work for and also build a relationship with them.
Yes, and it's all true. I think the the most important thing to have between you and a family is trust. Like, trust is a very sensitive word when it comes to working with a family, because you're coming into their home, you're a complete stranger. There are times where they have to trust you, like with their daughter, with their son, with their mom, with their dad, when they're not around. So, being able to, have trust is so important to the family, because this is you're coming into their household. So, yes, trust, a lot of patience, a lot of a forgiving heart, because it's not always easy. It really isn't always easy. But for me, from my experience, it started off a little bit rocky, because I was trying to get to know the family. And being someone who's a complete stranger, I have my own idea of family. I have my own idea of love. I have my own idea of, within the family. Some families are different. Some families are just fine, just sitting at the table, not really talking to each other, or, they talk about topics that are different from my family. So it's just really me getting to know their family and seeing what values and beliefs are important to them, which were completely different than mine. Wow. Completely different.
Wow.
And then just trying to adjust and adapt, and being, there were certain topics that I couldn't talk about, and there were certain topics that I could talk about, so really having to kind of monitor and filter myself when I walk through their door every morning.